guys, welcome to Super Scientist. My name's Kerry and welcome to the free science lessons. Today is going to be on cells, so I hope you all really enjoy it. I'm going to start off by telling you that the videos are going to run in a slightly different way, in that the Key Stage 1 video will be about 7 to 10 minutes long and will give you the description of the activity that you need to do. So after about 7 minutes, and I'll tell you when, you can switch off the video and you can go and do the practical activity with your children, and then that should take up about half an hour. I'm then going to continue the video and give some instructional information and some worksheets for Key Stage 2 children, and that will probably be the first 15 minutes of the video, and then you can switch off at that point, and I'll also tell you when, and then you will be able to go and do your activity and your attached worksheet. The rest of the video, that's another 15 minutes, will be for Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 because it will get slightly harder. And that information will then enable you to fill in the activities that I will attach for Key Stage 3 and 4. And there will also be some exam questions on there for you to do for GCSE. So let's get started with cells. I'm going to start off by telling you about the practical activity that you can do at home today. So you probably noticed in the background that I've got a microscope here. Now, all of you might not have one of these microscopes at home, and that's okay because I'm going to show you another way that you can look at cells without using a microscope. But if you have got one of these, then that's great. Usually they go up to times 80 magnification if you've got them, or 120 magnification if you're just buying them for home. If you've got them for educational purposes, they can go to greater magnification. You might also have one of these little microscopes, which I really rate, and they're called pocket microscopes if you're looking for them on the internet. They're between £3 and £5 each, and these are both very similar, but they do exactly the same thing in that they are just as powerful as those microscopes that I showed you earlier. They actually go up to times 60 magnification, so not quite as powerful depending on which type of microscope you've bought. But times 60 magnification for looking at things from around the household and in the garden is absolutely fine. They've got a light on them. If I turn it round like that, you can see that I've got it switched on now. And they've also got a UV light on them, which means that they will pick up anything that fluoresces under UV light, which can be pretty cool. This one works in exactly the same way. If I turn that round, you can see that that's got a light on it too. And it's also got a UV light. If I press along the side on that button there, you can see the blue light at the bottom as well. There we go, switches on and off. So how these work is that this is the eyepiece, and you place the object that you want to underneath the microscope, and you can just have it flat, or you can have it up to the light like that, and then you can move your microscope back and forth. But if you've got it down, you can switch your light on, and then you can move your eyepiece up and down like so, and it will magnify. It's pretty good. This one's similar. The light switches on, you place it on top of whatever object you're looking at, and there's a wheel on the side. Can you see it just there? And that will enable you to move up and down. So they're pretty good, but you don't probably all have one of these at home either, but you might want to get one on the internet, that's up to you. But if you don't have one, pretty much all of us have got one of these, a phone. And these are actually really good to use as microscopes. You can buy things that you can clip to your camera lens, just on the back there, on your phone to make it a microscope, which I've got here. I'm just going to attach it to the camera lens like that, so if you can see, it's now got a microscope attached to it. They're pretty good as well, and you can buy them at a reasonable price. They are about £8 on Amazon. I'm going to take it off because we don't actually need it. If you have an iPad or a phone, then that is good enough in itself. I'm going to just show you some pictures that I took earlier of some objects on my phone that were just 2 times 10 magnification. If I turn that one around there, that is times 10 magnification of a feather. this next one is ×10 magnification of eggshell. That little hole just in there is actually magnified pinprick hole, because when I have an egg in the morning, I pierce it before I place it in my egg broiler. That just guarantees that it cooks better. I bet you're not going to guess what that is, but that is ×10 magnification at the bottom of a garlic bulb. Pretty cool. That is a leaf. That's just a salad leaf, not just a leaf from the garden, it's a salad leaf. And this one's my favourite actually. This is a slice of cucumber, and it's just at ×10 magnification. So it just goes to show you what you can do with your phone or your iPad. I'm going to show you how to do it now so that you get a really good idea of how to use your phone as a microscope. So just go into your camera like that and open it. Now you can see a picture of me. And what you do is, if you take your finger and your thumb and you just pinch on your screen, you can do this on an iPad or on your phone, and you might need to do it a couple of times. You will then notice that it says down here ×10 magnification, and that is your phone magnified 10 times. The only thing I will say to you is that when you get your object to place underneath it, if you place it way too close to your lens, even though you're on ×10 magnification, you will not see it. So my advice to you is bring your camera up slightly until it is in focus, and then pinch and focus and zoom in. In science, when we are looking at something with our eyes, we call it the naked eye, because we haven't got anything covering our eyes. Like, for example, now it is not a naked eye because I've got my eyes covered with my glasses. But in science, when we've got nothing on our eyes, we call it our naked eye until we use a microscope or a lens to magnify something, to look at it. So the ×10 magnification on your phone shows that something is 10 times more magnified than what you can see with your naked eye. That's why. So at this point of the video, it's the time that ages 5 and 7, Key Stage 1, can switch off and go and do the practical activity in their home. My advice is to look for things in the house. If you've got a garden, that's great. You can pick up some gravel, some dirt or some soil, or something perhaps from around the pond. If you've got anything, just be careful that you don't get too close. Make sure you ask an adult to help you. And then you can have a look at those under your camera lens at ×10 magnification and take a screenshot every single time. If you haven't got a garden and you can't go outside, or the weather's not particularly nice, there are plenty of things that you can look at inside. Pepper's really good. Salt is great. If you haven't got any salt, then you can look at sugar. An OXO cube is really good. If you just crumble a little corner of that onto a plate, then you can magnify that ×10 on your phone. This is the garlic bulb that I was looking at earlier. What I really like about this is that it's sprouting on the end, so that's really good to look at under the microscope. If you've got a dog like I have, Libby, come. She's coming now to come and say hello to you. Libby, up you come. Say hello to everybody. This is Libby, everybody. If you've got a dog, then what's really good is if you comb your dog or brush your dog, dogs like being stroked or brushed, don't they? You like that, don't you, Libby? You can take some of the dog hair out of the brush and you can have a look at that underneath the microscope as well, or your camera lens that's going to act as a microscope anyway. If you go and do that with your parents now, then that should take you about half an hour. That's great. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Right, the rest of you then. So now we've still got Key Stage 2, 3 and 4. So now for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 and 4, let's have a look at cells. I've got some drawn here on my whiteboard. I'll move it a little bit closer so that you can see it. There we go. Let's turn that around so you can see it a little bit better. Here we go. So, all living things are made up of cells, and in science we like to split them into two categories when you start learning about cells. This would be under the B1 section of biology or double science if you're learning GCSE. If you're Key Stage 3, it will just be under cells, and if you're Key Stage 2, it will probably be under living things. So, plant cells and animal cells then, I have put some labels with the cells that are, things that are the same in the cells in the middle, and the things that are different in the cells along the side. So, can you remember what this part of the cell is? It's pointing to the outside of the animal cell and to the inside of the plant cell. If you remembered correctly, this is the cell membrane, and I'm going to write that in now. There we go, that's cell membrane. And both a plant cell and an animal cell have a cell membrane. The next bit is this bit that I'm pointing to just here in the plant cell and here in the animal cell. It's a jelly-like structure and it's called the cytoplasm. Let's write that in there. And this part of the cell, that's the big black dots here, is known as the nucleus. There we go. And then there are two parts of the plant cell that are not in the animal cell. They are the cell wall, which I'll go round this side and turn around so you can see me. Cell wall. And we've got something here that plant cells have got that animal cells don't have, and plant cells need it to photosynthesize. Can you remember what that is? They're called chloroplasts. There we go. So that's the differences between a plant cell and an animal cell. If you are Key Stage 2, that is all you will need to know. So your job now is to go and do the same activity, the practical activity at home that the other children will be doing or students will be doing, and looking at different cells under your phone microscope. I would challenge you, Key Stage 2, to make sure that you try and look at things inside and outside if possible, and to download the worksheet that I have clipped in the description for Key Stage 2 for you to do. Okay, let's move this back so we can see. Okay, so we now have Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 left. Hi, welcome back then. So now we have Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 students. I'm going to turn this board around because it's slightly different than before. And Key Stage 3 students now need to know what cells are. So I've written here, what is a cell? And you will get asked that question on your worksheet. Cells are basic units from which all tissues and living things are made. There was a famous scientist called Robert Hooke, and he was the first scientist to look in a microscope. And he studied tissues in a microscope in 1665, and this is what he saw. I've just drawn them here. They looked what he described as prison cells from a monastery. So he called them cells, which is where cells got their name from. And in fact, the microscope that he used back when he was studying cells back in 1665 was only times 30 magnification. But that's obviously more than what you're going to be looking at on your phones now. So this meant that he was able to see these cells and nucleus like that, which I'm just going to draw in now. So in the 19th century, microscopes were then able to look at times 200 magnification compared to microscopes now, which are able to look at 1,500 magnification. So we also need to know what these parts of the cells do. So I've already labelled them for you, and there's bits on here that went on there last time that Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 need to know. So in the animal cell then, we have the nucleus, and the nucleus controls the cell activities, and obviously that appears also in the plant cell. We also have the cell membrane, which appears in both, and the function of the cell membrane is to keep the cell together and control what goes in and out of the cell. pay attention because these things will appear on the sheet. And finally, there is the cytoplasm. And I said to you before that that's a jelly-like substance, and that is where the cell functions happen, and they appear in both cells. So the plant cell then. The plant cell has got a few other parts of it that don't appear in the animal cell, as we saw earlier, but we didn't talk about those functions, which we're going to talk about briefly now. We said that the plant cell has got chloroplasts that it needs to photosynthesize. And what that means is it contains little green discs that contain chlorophyll, and they make the food for the plant. So they're really important. That's why plants appear green, because chlorophyll is a green pigment. We also have a vacuole here, which is known as a storage space and is filled with cell sap. And finally, we have got a cell wall, which supports the cell, keeps it very strong, is made of cellulose and gives the cell its rigidity. So that's basically what Key Stage 3 need to know. So at this point, you can switch off the video and go and do the activity with your phone microscope. And then when you've done that, you can download the worksheet and have a go at the questions that are on there. There's nothing on the worksheet that we didn't talk about in here, so you should be able to do that. If you've forgotten, you can always re-watch the video and have the worksheet in front of you and do this at the same time. Thank you. Okay, so Key Stage 4, you need to know a little bit more about some other functions of the cells. And we've got some more parts of the animal and plant cell here that Key Stage 4 need to know. So I've written here mitochondria and ribosomes because we haven't mentioned those yet. We need to be aware of what they are, and the worksheet that I have attached for you will also have these on it, so you need to make sure that you know what these functions are. So mitochondria are tiny structures where respiration takes place, releasing energy for cell processes. So we'll write that on here. We'll just write respiration as a bit of a reminder for you. Turn back around the right way so you can see me. And we also have ribosomes. If we remember that mitochondria are involved in respiration, you probably remember that ribosomes are protein synthesis. Turn that round and write that there. There we go, protein synthesis. And the ribosomes are present in the cytoplasm, and it's where proteins are made, or it's known, you're probably aware of it and being taught in your science lessons as protein synthesis. So we've got an exam question here that is worth 3 marks. Can you name 3 structures present in plant and algal cells and describe the function of each structure? Now, first of all, whenever I think of an exam question or I see an exam question, I approach it in a very logical way. First of all, I notice that it says plant, so I will circle the word plant, and it will also say, and it says here, algal cells. So you were probably expecting it to say plant and animal cells because that's what we've talked about so far. That's why it's important to circle those 2 words, because it's not plant and animal, it's plant and algal. And this word's important as well. It says describe the function of each structure. So if it was me and I was doing an exam question, I would set it out in a table format, even though it's only worth 3 marks, because I know that I need to not only state the 3 structures that the plant and algal cell has in common, I also need to say what their function is. So let's start by, if I move this over here so that you can see it a little bit better, and I will come this side. Let's start by writing structure here. Put a line down the middle. And then let's put function on this side. Let's think about the structure that algal cells and plant cells have in common. They both are green plants, therefore they must contain chloroplasts. That's not even 1 mark yet because we have not described the function of the chloroplasts, and we must do that. So chloroplasts are green discs, if you remember, that contain chlorophyll. And the purpose of that is so that plants can photosynthesize and make food. That's only 1 mark. We need 2 more marks. Plant cells also have a cell wall, so I'll write that in there. Great. And the cell wall is made of cellulose, and we also said that the plant wall strengthens the cell. Put a little hand sign there, made of cellulose and strengthens the cell. And finally, we've got 2 marks there, so we need 1 more, and we're going to say vacuole. If you remember, the vacuole is or contains the cell sap, and it also keeps the cell rigid. Okay, so that means that you've got tick 1 mark chloroplasts and their function, tick 2 marks cell wall and its function, tick vacuole and its function. That's 3 marks in total. It's a really good idea to set out your 6 mark questions like this as well. It stops you from repeating yourself, and it stops you from saying a similar thing over and over again, and therefore stopping yourself getting the marks. So that is now going to be the end of the section for all the key stages. And key stage 4, you have got a slightly longer activity attached to this with a full mind map for you to fill in. So that will take you to at least 30 minutes, if not beyond 30 minutes to an hour. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. There'll be more exciting things tomorrow, and there will also be practical activities that you can do at home. Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed teaching you. Hope to see you again. Bye.